All right, welcome. I'll call the meeting to order. Committee of Adjustments meeting, March 19th, 2024. Please note that this meeting is being broadcast and recorded. Recordings will be made available on the town's YouTube channel. At this time, if you have any cell phones or devices, please put them on mute or vibrate. I will introduce our folks that we have here today. I'll start with our staff. I'll start with our senior planner, Heidi Richardson. Randy Burke, who is our planner. Adam Sabansky, who's right beside me, Chief Administrative Officer. Lisa Smeekins, our planning technician. I believe Corinne Nada is our Chief Building Official and Interim Manager of Planning and Development. And we have Plympton. She is online. And I will introduce our committee. I'll start on my far right this time, Councillor Mike Vasey. Jennifer Turk, council member. Deputy Mayor Nettie McEwen. And committee member Les Goldhawk, and I'm Bruce Moulton, and I'm the chair of this meeting. I have a motion here. Sorry, everyone, committee members, declaration of pecuniary interests. Any committee members that have pecuniary interests, please call them at that time. So the committee meeting minutes of March the 12th, committee had time to look at them. A motion here by Councillor Mike Vasey, seconded by Jennifer Turk, that the minutes from the regular committee of adjustments meeting of March 12th, 2024 be approved as presented. All those in favor? That's carried. All right, we'll move to our first severance application. Severance application B924. Take notice that an application has been made by Holden Homes with respect to the property known as Part 3 Plan 25R-10933, Town of Plympton, Wyoming, 481 and 483 Main Street. The applicant is requesting permission to sever 393 square meters, 4,230 square feet from the above noted property. The subject lands have existing semi-detached dwelling, and the proposed severance would occur along the common wall. The subject property is zoned residential 26 R26 as per the Town of Plympton, Wyoming zoning bylaw 97 of 23. And along with this severance application, I will read the other severance application, and our planner will talk about both. We also have severance application B1024. Take notice that an application has been made by Holden Homes with respect to the property known as Part 4 Plan 25R-10933, Town of Plympton, Wyoming, 477 and 479 Main Street. The applicant is requesting permission to sever 393 square meters, 4,230 square feet from the above noted property. The subject lands have an existing semi-detached dwelling. Am I reading the same? I am reading it. Semi-detached dwelling, and the proposed severance would occur along common wall. The subject property is zoned residential 26 R26 as per the Town of Wyoming zoning bylaw 97 of 2003. This time I'll refer to our senior planner, Patty Richardson.
Okay, the committee will remember last meeting or the meeting before that, we dealt with two other lots identical to this, right next door to this. So there's two more lots with semi-detached dwellings on each. These applications are intended to sever the lot in half, so each part of the semi-detached can be conveyed in separate ownership. Okay, the lands are designated residential in the official plan, and semi-detached units are permitted in that designation. And they are zoned. And each one of the lots that are being created complies with the zoning bylaw frontage, area, and the location of the dwelling on the lot. So I'm recommending that council or that the committee approve this subject to the conditions that were outlined in each one of the recommendation sections in the staff report.
Okay. So Schofield, anything to add to Patty's report?
He is not.
Oh, he's not here? Did he say he was planning on attending, Lisa?
He didn't make any note either way. He did receive the agenda package and the link to log in virtually. If he wanted to log in virtually instead, he received the notice to say what time the meeting was.
Okay. Any correspondence pertaining to this application?
No correspondence was received. I do think there might be some people in the gallery that are pertaining to this application, but I'm not positive that.
Anyone in the gallery that?
Yeah, explain it to me.
I'll have our
This is
planners.
all Greek to me. And since I just moved in and I get this letter and it says, you're gonna take 900 or 393 square meters. Where are you taking it from?
I'll have our planner explain it to you.
So each one of the lots that we have, there's one semi-detached dwelling on, it, right?
Right?
So there's 2 units in each
You're
semi-detached.
talking about the duplex, the two. Okay,
semis.
okay. It's not affecting the other side of that.
No,
Oh, this makes much more sense then. Okay. Oh,
it's
John,
it's just affecting those 2 lots with those 2 semi-detached units on them,
okay.
okay?
And where are you cutting it?
Right down the the common wall between them,
Okay,
okay?
that's what you're,
Makes sense now?
this has been Greek mythology. My husband
Okay.
used to take care of all this crap and I'm sitting here going, how am I supposed to understand that? So I went to a guy and he says, I don't know, they're talking in circles. See, I'm not alone.
Anytime you have a question like that, you can certainly call the town and they.
I bug you.
No, don't, but you won't bugging me. You'll be bugging over there or Patty and that's no problem. That's why they're here. So you have,
Where you're taking the cut is between the 2 divisions of the the dwelling?
Right, where the common wall is, so you've got
Okay.
the 2 garages and where the front doors join there.
Yep,
So there's a common property or common wall down the middle of
Correct.
those. That's where the lot line goes. So each will sit on one side, each side of the property
right.
for both the properties. So there's, right?
Well, where are they taking the 393 square meters?
That is the area of one of the lots. So one of the lots will support the one side of the semi-detached dwelling. Okay, so we're just severing them basically in half.
Why didn't you say that?
Well, because we wanted
Who's
you
the
to.
engineer that drafted this? I wanted admission here. Okay,
Okay,
that makes more sense. So I don't have to worry about them cutting across and, oh, well, then I don't have to worry about it at all. It's not affecting my property.
no.
Okay, I'm glad. I'm sad. You guys can carry on. I'm sorry to
Thank you.
interrupt you and make it confusing,
No.
but it makes more sense to me now.
Okay.
Thank you.
no problem. Anyone else from the gallery have any more? So I will go to my committee. I'll start with my far left, Les. Any questions of our planner, I guess, because we don't have.
No, I think it's straightforward, and when I took the site visit, it explains itself as well.
Okay, Deputy Mayor
Yeah,
McEwen,
no, even though it was Greek, I understood it.
Jennifer,
I don't have any.
Mike,
No questions here.
nor do I. So I have a motion, so I'll do both severances separately. We'll vote on both, one at a time. So I have a motion here by Mike Vasey, seconded by Jennifer Turk, that report SR 24-061 by Patty Richardson, Senior Planner, dated March 12, 2024, regarding consent application B-0924 affecting lands known as 481 and 483 Main Street to sever parts 1, Plan 25R-11398 from the balance of the lands described as Part 2, Plan 25R-11398 be received and application B-0924 be approved, subject to the following conditions. A copy of the deed must be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer in form suitable for registration. 2, additional severance fees as required by the town have been paid before the deeds are endorsed. 3, the conditions must be satisfied and the deed presented within 2 years from the date of decision The consent will. Call the question, all those in favor? It's carried. I also have a motion by Jennifer Kirk, seconded by Mike Basie, that report SR 24 062 by Patty Richardson, senior planner, dated March 12th, 2024, regarding consent application B 1024 affecting lands known as 477 and 479 Main Street to sever part 1, Plan 25R 11399 from the balance of the lands described as part 2, Plan 25R 11399 be received and application B 1024 be approved, subject to the following conditions. A copy of the deed must be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer in a form suitable for registration. Number 2, additional severance fees as required by the town have been paid before the deeds are endorsed. Number 3, the conditions must be satisfied and the deed presented within 2 years from the date of decision, or the consent will lapse. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. And we are ahead of schedule, so I will have to wait a couple minutes before we begin our next application. All right, we will continue our 5:30 application. Severance application number B 424. Take notice that an application has been made by Kevin Manilli with respect to the property known as concession 5, part lots 18, town of Plympton, Wyoming, 4788 London line. The applicant is requesting permission to sever 1,423 square meters, 0.35 acres, being part 1 of reference plan 25R-11294, known municipally as 4814 London line. The above, from the above noted property. These two properties were previously severed on September 28th, 1961. Have since been merged on title. Existing single detached dwelling and accessory buildings are located on each parcel. The subject properties are zoned agricultural 1A1. At this time, I will refer to our planner, Randy Burke.
So through this process of severance application, they're really requesting a certificate of validation. So a certificate of validation is when no new lots are being created, but there was a breach within the Planning Act. So this particular property was created by consent and registered through the land registry as a standalone parcel. But when the owners then bought the surrounding farm parcel, they merged on title, therefore breaching the Planning Act. So really they're just looking to fix that breach and validate it was a registered parcel. And that's the process going today.
Anything to add, Kevin?
Oh, gee, pretty well said. What we're here for.
I will refer to our committee for, oh, sorry, any correspondence, Lisa?
No correspondence was received in relation to this application.
Thank you. I'll start with our committee, Councillor Vaizey.
No questions here. Thank you.
Jennifer?
I have none.
Nettie?
No, no questions. It's, yeah, those things happened in those days. When we were young.
61. Young men. Les?
Have any questions?
And I have no questions either. I have a motion here by Nettie McEwen, seconded by Mike Vaizey, that the report by Randy Burke, planner dated March 11, 2024, regarding the applicant's request for a certificate of validation to be received, and that the Committee of Adjustments approved the certificate of validation to correct the breach of the Planning Act for the lands legally described as part lot 18, concession 5, being part 1, plan 25R-11295 in the town of Plympton-Wyoming. I will call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. But once again, our next application is not until 5:45, so we will have another 10-minute break. We'll fly along here. When we're on. All right, we'll continue our meeting. Our 545 application. I have a minor variance application number A-0824. Take note that an application has been made by Robinson Design, agent for Shannon Kirby, with respect to the property known as Plan 2 Block UW Part Lot 11E, Part Lot 12, Town of Plympton-Wyoming, 572 Thames Avenue or Street. The subject property is zoned residential to R2 as per the Town of Plympton-Wyoming zoning bylaw 97 of 2003. The following variance has been requested for the proposed partially enclosed, partially covered porch. One, a variance of approximately 4.61 meters, 15.1 feet, to permit the front yard setback to be 1.39 meters, 4.58 feet, notwithstanding the required minimum front yard setback is 6 meters, 19.68 feet, as per table A of the zoning bylaw 97 of 2003. This time I will refer to our planner, Patty Richardson.
Okay, so the applicant is looking to construct on the front of the house, where that existing porch is, an enclosed area in the house. Okay, so it'll be like a vestibule inside the house. And it is 1.8 meters wide by 1.5 meters deep. And then on front of that, they're proposing to construct a covered porch, so with a roof. And it is 2.2 meters approximately wide and 1.5 meters deep. So this results in a front yard setback of 1.39 meters. Now, the existing garage is already closer to the front lot line than the bylaw would permit. The bylaw requires 6 meters. The existing garage is 3.52 meters from the front lot line. So the enclosed portion of the addition will extend 2 feet out in front of the existing garage, so the garage door. And you can see when you did your site inspection that it basically is that porch that sits there. And then the covered front porch will be in front of that. Now, I think if you went out on the site, you can see most of the houses on that street are closer to the front lot line than permitted by the bylaw. So coming closer to the front lot line there is in character with the neighborhood. Okay, the lands are designated residential and zoned residential, and single-family residential uses are permitted there. As you notice, there's a 2-story house on there that's undergoing some renovations. I can recommend to the committee that they approve this. I think it's in keeping with the purpose and intent of the bylaw, given that the dwelling's already close to the front lot line. It's not further really, in my opinion, infringing. I think it will actually add to the character of the house. I think it's in keeping with the neighborhood because they're all fairly close there. So I can recommend.
Okay. Christine and Scott, anything to add to Patty's report?
Well, I think Patty covered most of what we have. We were just here for any questions that might come up.
Great, thank you. Lisa, any correspondence that we've received?
No correspondence was received in relation to this application.
This time I'll go to our committee for their questions, and I'll start with my immediate right hand, Jennifer.
I just had one question just because on the drawing, it says that the front lot line is not exact because it's per the Lambton GIS. Do we have that the front lot line is exactly like the variance is 1.39?
That's what the applicant has provided as a setback from the front lot.
Do we not normally request a survey to confirm?
Not always.
Councillor Basie?
Yes, I don't agree with this one. The house itself is already the closest one to the road, in the way I look at it. And to add 2 more feet and then the porch in front of it again, it's gonna make the house look, a big house look even bigger because it's closer to the road than everybody else, so I don't see any reason for it.
So.
Okay. Deputy Mayor McEwen.
So it's already non-compliant. The 4 feet from the road. 4 feet from the front lot line is just too extreme, in my opinion. If they come down somewhat more, like make it a bigger setback, like how much room are you gonna have to even park the car? And I don't, it just, I know you're not gonna park a car right there, but it's just, the house is gonna be too close, so.
Just a question as to whether or not, since the garage is already there, if the plans had been, could have been set up as to be in line with the garage. So that it may have needed a variance anyway, but at least it could have been justified that already exists.
Yes, it would have required a variance if it was in line.
Anything to add?
Actually, if I may, yeah, you notice on the drawing that's on the screen there, the 32-foot dimension that's at the front is the actual street. So I don't know what the issue would have been with this, because obviously the 11'7" is the front of the garage that's there now. So the 6-meter setback that would have been required, it's almost as if the street line itself got moved back after the house was built. Because as you saw, all the houses that are on that street are approximately the same distance back from the street line. But upon our investigation, when we took over the job from Mrs. Kirby, essentially we found that the lot line itself was that close, that 15 meters. And just to address the survey question, with Plympton GIS, they're fairly good with their accuracy. And instead of having the customer go and spend, $3,500 for a survey and then 6 to 8 weeks to get it back, she's on a timeline if she can. She'd like to get this sorted out and try and get in the ground beginning of April, early May if possible. So that was the idea behind trying to make the application at this point so that we didn't get held up obviously further down the road if we had to. But as far as the survey itself goes, no, we did not go for the survey on it, but the application or the Plympton GIS in the approximation that was there and site measurements that were done where the lot line stakes posts on the property, that's where those numbers are coming from.
Any more questions from our committee?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead, Les.
Failing the survey, did anybody do a search of the iron post?
I'm not aware that they did, to be honest. We don't typically do that as the design firm, but we were unaware that anybody iron bar for the front corner. So
That would have been.
would you consider making it smaller,
So the porch itself could probably be reduced. I'd have to consult with my client to find out whether that's acceptable to them as well, whether there's a wiggle room in there for them. This was what she was looking for. So if it was a matter of, we cut the porch back by a foot or two or whatever, the front foyer itself, as you can see in the proposal that was given, the actual dimensions, as Patty mentioned as well, the front porch comes out approximately 6 feet from the house, and then we have another 5 feet for the front porch. So I mean, yes, we could probably pull it back a little bit in order to satisfy if there was a number that we could say yes would be sufficient. And I know that 4'7" is not a big number, but it's only because we're already dealing with the 11'7" as our minimum. And typically, if you were to drive down the street, you would never notice that there's a 11'7" setback to that front porch because the 32 feet is from the street line, as we mentioned. So it doesn't look like it's got a really, really short front yard.
All right, I'm looking for some recommendations from my committee. Go ahead, Jill.
Sorry, I have a question and maybe Corinne can answer this from the building perspective. What is she gonna require? Building permit submission? Is she gonna require survey? Because I don't see how we can approve a setback if we're not sure where the setback is.
Go ahead, Corinne.
Okay, thank you. A survey would not be required as part of this type of building permit application because we normally only require the surveys if it's a condition of a planning application. or if it's a brand new build. So if it's a condition that you want to adhere to, we could add it as a condition for the approval, but it's not our normal process to ask for a survey at building permit application.
I have a motion if you want me to go through it, but I don't know where we're gonna stand on this, so.
But how much will this stick out further than the other houses exactly? I don't know what that measurement is.
Well,
It's hard to tell with that street.
do you have a copy in my planning report? Yeah,
So see,
I think, like, if you go to the house that's
say
this way,
houses,
like, they're both fairly close, especially the one with the other one with the pool there. It's fairly close. You can see where the vehicles are parked in front of the door there. Kind of gives you an idea of how close they are to the lot line. Same with the garage on the one next to that. So, I mean, this is, yeah, it's going to be within 1.39 meters of the front lot line. But I agree that the road is kind of offset in that road allowance. If you look at the picture, there's definitely more boulevard on this side than the other side. So, I mean, it's up to the committee to decide whether they think it's appropriate or not, but they're already close to the road. So, I mean, it's a covered porch. It's really just to provide an entrance to the dwelling.
well, I would like to see it cut back some, but that's strictly my opinion.
Step back some.
Well,
Does that,
but 1 foot isn't, like 1 foot isn't gonna make a difference. You're just gonna consider 1 foot to be a little.
Well, and like I said, I'd have to consult with my client as to what they would be comfortable with cutting back and offering as an alternative. Like you said, 1 foot isn't gonna make a big difference on it for sure. But if you cut 5 feet off, that's essentially the entire front porch. So
Yeah, so
where is that balance,
I know it's.
so I have an option here. I mean, I have a motion, I have a seconder. I can read the motion. If it gets defeated, then once again, it's a whole new application. I'm gonna ask the committee. We don't really, like to do that as far as, we would rather defer than we would, have an issue. I'm not sure, Mike, you had a sour taste in your mouth as well, so I'm just wondering.
Well, I don't understand that we're already too close to the lot line, so we're gonna allow another 7 feet encroachment into that. Like it's just, it doesn't make any sense.
So I
probably a no at anything past the garage.
I might add,
yeah, go ahead, Nick.
just in case, you never know when this street's ever gonna be paved and everything like that. Probably won't, if I say that's a consideration, it probably won't be done for 100 years, but
It'll be sooner than that.
sooner than 100 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Sooner than my age, eh? Is that what you're
didn't
trying
say
to tell me? Improve that street. Like that, sure, that's,
Would it be appropriate to suggest that you may want to ask the committee to defer so you can consider your options? Like, instead of just outright denying it, because that's kind of sounds where it's going.
Yeah,
I would definitely ask to defer
Yeah.
to another meeting if we can, to consult with my client if there's gonna be a no. Is there a number that we could say that would be agreed upon, that would be far enough back? Because if it's the garage, I have a feeling that'll be a no from their side, and I don't know what the process would be beyond that, whether they would go to appeal if there was a no on the decision. I can't say and speak for her.
Make a suggestion that rather than go by the GIS, is if you had somebody that hunts for the iron rods.
Okay.
To get an exact number, that would probably help out in regards to what exactly is being asked for.
Fair enough.
You're hearing there's a higher level of comfort if he's back with the garage. but that's for you and your client to talk about how close to that you can accommodate and how you can provide the evidence to the committee to support that by possibly finding the farms.
Right.
Lisa, can you write me up a deferral motion?
Back, Lisa.
We're live. Right?
So the audio is working, the camera's not shifting at the moment. Stop shifting.
Somebody just said that it still shows up as that you're on break, coming back at 5:30.
Oh, cause I just checked. To me, it shows Nettie missing from her seat. Right now, the camera,
Be slightly like this too.
It's not me, somebody texted me.
okay. Yeah, I have the meeting open right now. Showing that Nettie isn't at her seat.
All right, I have a motion here by moved by Nettie McEwen, seconded by Jennifer Turk, that the report SR-24-069 by Patty Richardson, senior planner, dated March 12th, 2024, be received, and that minor variance application A-0824 to permit a proposed enclosed front entrance and covered front porch to have a front yard of 1.39 meters, 4.58 feet be deferred to allow the agent to consult with his applicant regarding a few further front yard setback. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. So once again, discussions with our senior planner and as well with Lisa, if your applicant has questions concerning. All right,
Hi there.
we are past 6 o'clock.
Hello. Hello.
Oh,
Hello, hello.
Marion Walter?
all right, well,
Know that.
Well, they let me know you were coming.
we will move on to our 6 o'clock application. I'm going to read, I just wanted Brad to come back in because I wanted to know that we're gonna do both, no, we're gonna do the one application. So we'll do severance application B or B-0524. Take notice that an application is made by JN Ventures Limited with respect to the property known as concession front lots 50 to 51, 25R-0926, part 1, Plympton-Wyoming, 5706 Lakeshore Road. Applicant is requesting permission to sever 0.162 hectares, 0.4 acres, single-family residential lot from the balance of the lands shown as proposed lot 8 on the attached map. The entire subject property is zoned agricultural /2A2 residential /5R5 hazard H and significant woodlot WD. Wyoming zoning bylaw 97 2003. The entirety of the proposed severed lot is located in the residential 5 zone. Subsequent to this application, the applicant is also seeking an additional consent B-0624 and minor variance A-0424 on the same subject lands. So Brad, I'm just gonna read initially our 6 o'clock application of severance application, and then 6:15 we last till 6:15 we'll move to the severance. So at this time, I will refer to our senior planner, Patty Richardson, for her report.
Okay, so I think that he's all been out to the site. And you can see out there that there's 2 distinct portions of this property. Okay, so Lisa, can you go to the other one there? Okay, so we have what I'll call the tablelands, which is this parcel right here. And we have what is known as the hazard land down here, okay? So lot 8 is in this corner right here. It goes along, you can see it outlined in red. So part of lot 8 is zoned residential, R5, which permits a single detached dwelling to be constructed. And some of it is zoned hazard. So on that lot, we have a slope stability study that was done here, because as you could see up there, there's quite a large drop on this slope. Now it varies across it, but it's quite a substantial drop. So the subdivider was required to have a slope stability report done that looked at the stability of that slope to ensure that if there were dwellings constructed adjacent to it, that it was stable. In addition to that, this land here is regulated by the Conservation Authority, okay? So it's zoned hazard. And this line right here, as you can see, that's the limit of the regulation, okay? And this is the limit of the regulation through lot 8. There's also another line you can see here. And that is a 6-meter setback from the top of the stable slope. So the slope stability study found that this was a very, stable slope. And thus, there was only a 6-meter setback required from the top of the stable slope. Okay. The lands on lot 8 have 2 distinct designations, both in the county plan and the local official plan. In the county plan, it is Lakeshore Area 3. And that was subject to a OLT appeal or OMB appeal. And the designation provides for residential development. So all of this and this, all designated Lakeshore Area 3. The Lakeshore Area 3 policies allow 25 dwellings to be constructed on that property. Okay. The lands here, currently the OP allows it to be developed on septic systems and public water. So the OP requires 0.8 hectares, which is the minimum requirement for a lot on septic. If the lot is serviced, then that 0.8 does not apply, right? We would go to the R5 zone for a minimum lot standard. Okay, so lot 8 here will be serviced with water and sewer. Okay, so it can be smaller than the 0.8 hectares. It complies with the R5 zone in place there. What else can I tell you about it? Although some of it is regulated by the Conservation Authority, the Conservation Authority has reviewed this. We did, Mr. Zanting has done a lot of pre-consultation on lot 8 and the area on lot 7. The Conservation Authority has no issues. They feel there's adequate building envelope on lot 8 to accommodate a dwelling outside of the hazard regulation. So they had no issues with the proposed severance. And I can recommend that one to the committee. I think it's in compliance with the official plan. It certainly complies with the zoning bylaw. And it can be serviced.
Okay, thank you. Brad, anything to add?
More on conditions, I guess, that I have clarification or questions on. Might have been easier. We started with lot 9. I think it's important to start at understanding why we're here. And it's not actually just to create more lots. Similar to the application we did on Confed a few weeks ago, where we took off the development land from the farmland or the non-developable land. That's basically what started this process. There's different studies that would be required if these valley lands stayed with the tablelands. At that meeting in when we dealt with Confed,
there was some questions about that. So I did reach out to my consultant and I forwarded it to Patty. I don't think he answered me, but that's okay. But there's, the comment from the consultant says there's inconsistency coming out of MCM. So I think that's Ministry of Cultural Services or something, regarding the need to assess entire properties as opposed to just the development area. Requests to assess the entire property are generating a fair bit of confusion, as this hasn't even been explicitly stated as a policy, but it's coming out in review letters. I don't know what that means in English, but the answers maybe could be. And then they go on to talk about specifically, this was on the archaeological study for Queen Street lands, where they discussed where they wanted to actually do archaeological study by drill holes in the 20-acre odd bush. And so the reason I'm bringing that up, that's the relevance of starting these two applications. Lot 9 only has a building envelope discussed, because that's what was requested. And really for just trying to separate the major building sections from here. So I guess my request, obviously, if you've been out there, you've seen the other lots haven't sold yet. So I would agree with that it'd be positive that it would be. By the time they got finalized and through the complicated planning process to get the deed stamped, I think we missed the peak of the market, but that will come back. So I guess the biggest thing I would ask is the planning has requested that the sanitary and water services be installed in order to complete these lots. And where I get that, and lots of times, I think this is a really good spot where it would make sense that to defer, and I'm not sure the right terminology, Adam, maybe you can assist, but to delay that requirement based on the market conditions to have those services installed at the time that we build. You know, even as far as proposed lot 9, even yesterday, Adam and I were speaking about that possibly being utilized as parkland. We've also reached out to several through the Conservation Authority. There's 2 different organizations that have met me on site to discuss about replanting and doing something cool and exciting in that valley lands. Again, those are all steps and processes that are just easier to deal with once they're separated. Because again, if you have to do an arc study, if we planted trees in the valley lands and then you got to do an arc study, that's complicated. Separating the lands off, it's just much easier. And then if something like that happens, or it does get used as parkland as an example, or maybe, you know, Walter's here, maybe he wants to buy it and join with his neighbor. I don't know. But all these things are easier to assess at the time that we have a little more information. And then by default, if it does stay in some sort of conservation natural section or whatever language, we certainly don't need any services. So to me, it would make sense in this case to defer.
So basically the condition that says that it would satisfy Plympton-Wyoming Public Works Department. I will refer to Adam to answer that question. I mean, once again, it doesn't say that they had to be. It just basically says that water and sanitary connections be provided.
Louder, please.
Oh, sorry. I usually am loud. In the recommendations, it says that the owner satisfy the Plympton-Wyoming Public Works Department and water and sanitary service connections be provided to the lot in compliance with the streets bylaw. So I will refer to Adam to kind of discuss what would satisfy the Plympton-Wyoming Public Works Department.
So traditionally, any severance where it's creating a lot for building has required that services be provided as part of severance process. That has been the practice of this committee to date. Rarely has the committee provided relief from that. However, there has been a few occasions where that has occurred. And then the only time that the committee has provided relief from that condition, they have required a servicing agreement or a development agreement or some form of agreement to oblige the developer to put the servicing in at the proper time, oblige the developer to put up a proper security to ensure those services are installed at the proper time. This is a challenging site because you're creating one lot as it is for potential residential development. The other lot is more of an unknown entity as it is undetermined on what it'll be used for in the future. Given the uncertainty, we certainly could entertain holding off services on the one lot. However, holding off services on the second lot would not necessarily be in compliance with the committee's previous decisions based on that lot could be sold once the deeds are stamped. So typically, the committee has required it to be serviced prior. Again, that could be alleviated through an agreement, which could be put separately on each new parcel or jointly on both parcels. But the requirement is traditionally required by the committee to facilitate a severance. So we can work with the committee and the developer on either direction, depending which way the committee goes on this situation.
Anything to add, Patty, before I go back to Brad? Brad, any?
Yeah, so, and yeah, excellent, thanks for coming back. So again, the point of doing lot 8 at this point, because the alternative would have been to do lot 8 and 9 totally separate and just leave it that way. But again, the drainage report is one that comes up in the requirement as well, and that's why lot 8 was proposed as early as 2018 in the original 7 lots. And the reason it wasn't done, it wasn't just for random reasons. The drainage report for the Pearson drain was already done and completed and would have had to been updated. So rather than do that and hold up the first 7 lots in order to service lot 8, the decision was made to just proceed with the 7 lots and leave it in the future. Now it's splitting off the proposed lot 9. The drainage report needs to be reopened to resolve the process. I'm not sure the right terminology. So it makes sense to reopen it. That's a Dobbin exercise or a desk exercise. Like there's not much, if any, work that needs to be done on site, as far as I understand, talking to Dobbin this morning. So it makes a lot of sense. The report's open. I assume, Adam, does that have to come to council for approval when you update the drain like that?
There's a couple different methods. You can, if staff do the apportionment would come back to council for their endorsement, provided the property owner endorses the apportionment. So yes, it is generally a tabletop exercise, either performed by staff or appointed drainage engineer. That's a discussion you want to have with our drainage superintendent. There's a couple of ways to accommodate that.
So long story short, that's why lot 8 is being put in. At the end of the day, we already have 7 lots that have. So it's not like I'm trying to jump the gun to just do something. It just makes sense while you're going through the motions to do it. But as far as deferring the actual sewer and water, which is your expensive part, it to me just makes really good sense to defer that. And doing an agreement, I don't think is that complicated. I don't think.
Caution more for the developer than the committee. Typically, when we require development agreements, if the servicing were to be on private lands, we would require anywhere from 25 to 50% of it security. However, those services are to be located in municipal lands, i.e. the road allowance, we typically require a deposit of 100%. So financially, it may not be any more advantageous. In fact, it might be less advantageous for an agreement due to the legal costs and the fees that the staff associate with agreements. So there's solutions, but they may not alleviate the financial.
Do you not take LCs for that?
You can take an LC. I understand LCs are not much more desirable than cash though, because of the fees that come along with them. But yes, an LC is generally
I
accepted.
have that fixed now. They are far more attractive than cash.
And financially, that's up to you to make it work, but generally to put services in for both these lots, or at least one of these lots through an agreement, we would require a letter of credit or some form of security in line of 100% of the service and costs.
So then for the purpose of tonight, would we, and again, rather than do it as a deferral or whatever, is there a way to leave it as a condition, as a either or to be worked out? Again, this just came up like a few days ago when I seen the report. So I just wonder if we can write the condition so that when we determine what's involved to write the deferred agreement or whatever, like we don't have that information tonight, right?
Well, and you're familiar with the process. The process for this would be virtually similar to any other development agreement. It'd be much more stripped down due to the very less comprehensive need for this agreement. But the roots of the development agreement would be the same. The securities would be very similar. The timelines would be very similar. It'd be very similar to numerous development agreements which you've already signed with the town. And given that the conditions say that to the satisfaction of the Public Works Department, typically, and provided the committee is supportive of it, we would suggest that an agreement can cover that, given that the costs are virtually the same in security wise. Therefore, the town will have security to ensure that services are installed in the lands if a sale does occur, and not the same developer would, but if the developer walks away from the lands.
Any other questions, Brad?
I think that covers it.
I know we've received multiple correspondence on this, and I just want to make sure that the committee had received the correspondence from today and had a chance to read the correspondence. Patty, I'm not sure the correspondence where you have time to take a look at that at all.
I have, and a lot of the correspondence deals with the whole of the property.
Right.
So just to start with some of the concerns, maybe we could bring the other two applications in.
If you'd like, I can,
Now,
now that
so
we're
that
at
we
the
can
time,
talk bigger
I
picture
would
up
like
here.
to do that. Okay, so I to continue, for you folks that are watching, we have 3 applications here. In order to talk about certain applications, we have to bring them to the floor. So me bringing them to the floor is reading them. And then we will be able to discuss each individually, and we'll vote on each individually, but we'll have to make sure that we can talk about the whole package in itself, because most of the correspondence and whatnot that we received is about the whole package of what Mr. Zanting is asking. If you guys are fine with that, I will now move on to our other the other severance application. I won't need to read the minor variance because it is talked about in the severance application. So take notice that an application has been made by JN Ventures Limited with respect to property known as concession front part lots 50 and 51, 25R 10926, part 1, town of Plympton-Wyoming, 5706 Lakeshore Road. Applicant is requesting permission to sever 8.242 hectares, 20.37 acres lot shown as proposed lot 9 on the attached map from the balance of the above noted property. The proposed severed lot is zoned agricultural 2, A2, residential 5, R5, hazard H, and significant woodlot WD, the town of Plympton-Wyoming, zoning bylaw 97 of 2003. The proposed retained lot would have an approximate area of 24.2 hectares, 60 acres. Zoning bylaw 97 of 2003 zones the retained lot agricultural 2, requires that the lot have a minimum lot area of 38 hectares. As a result, the applicant has also submitted minor variance A-0424 to be heard concurrently with this proposal. Additionally, the applicant is requesting a blanket easement over the severed parcel to ensure available servicing and effective drainage is possible for future development of the retained parcel. Prior to this application, the applicant is also seeking an additional consent of the one we just read, B0524. So now that it's on the floor, go ahead.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to the retained lands. Okay, so the retained lands are not agricultural lands. They are designated for residential development in the official plan. You have to remember that. We're not dealing with a piece of agricultural land, and despite that it's still zoned A2, the size of this farm parcel is really irrelevant because it is intended to be residential development, okay? So some of the things that have been stated in the comments that the committee's received talks about this being agricultural and why are we reducing the size of the agricultural land? And it doesn't meet the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw in that it will be an undersized farm parcel. So not the 38 general hectares that we like to maintain for farm parcel size. Those policies do not apply here. Okay, so we're simply doing a variance to keep this property legal with the zoning that's on it, but that zoning will not stay when development comes forward on that property. It will be residential. Now, the designation provides for 25 dwelling units to be constructed. These two will be part of that 25. Okay, I know there's been some concern expressed by residents about, oh, we're adding 2 more lots there. Now they're gonna have 27. No, the OP is very strict. It says how many units. This will be part of that dwelling unit count. Okay, so we're not adding 2 more units to the 25. Okay, I think that was part of the Hillsborough's concerns there, that they thought this was changing the official plan. We're not doing that. Okay. Okay, so we'll go to this lot here. So this lot here, the base designation is agricultural because all heritage, natural heritage property, hazard land, a lot of it has an agricultural underlying designation. But those policies really don't apply to how we look at those lands. We go to the natural heritage section of the official plan. Okay, so nothing is going to change on these lands. You can see that part of it is farmed because agriculture is permitted in a hazard designation and in a natural heritage designation. Most of what you see for natural heritage is going to be maintained here. So we're not going against the official plan that wants natural heritage features to be maintained. Now, this lot here, it's zoned hazard, most of it. Up here where lot 9 is proposed. Now, we have reviewed that and there is a viable building envelope on lot 9. Outside of the hazard, the only problem with this is there's a remnant piece of agricultural 2 zoning here, which doesn't permit, it permits a dwelling on a farm or on a lot out in the agricultural area, but because of the setbacks, we'll never get a house constructed in there. So Mr. Zanning understands that if it's decided that there will be a house constructed there, it requires a rezoning. Okay, so it would basically go to the R5 zone, I would think would be appropriate.
Can I interrupt while she's on that?
Yeah,
subject?
go ahead.
So if that's going to require a rezoning when he's going, let's say we grant that consent. Why wouldn't he have to apply for the rezoning to create the lot, let alone create the lot and then apply for the rezoning? Doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, well, the natural heritage OP policies don't provide for any of that to be, I guess, considered when we're looking at it. I think if you go to the Plympton-Wyoming official plan, basically the natural heritage policies say it's subject to our general consent policies. And there is really no minimum lot area and lot frontage required for natural heritage in the hazard zone. So I feel, I guess, from my perspective, I feel comfortable at this time creating this because most of this is going to stay exactly the way it is. And if Mr. Zanting decides he wants to build a house here, he can take that extra step further. It's not changing. I think what the committee needs to understand is that once this develops, this will be a separate property anyways. So it's going to be a separate property regardless when development occurs here.
Right.
I know it's a little.
Yeah, it is.
And anything else to add?
Were there any, sorry.
Go ahead, Les.
Just to add to that then, is based on the fact that all that is all agricultural, but it is zoned on county as residential or further development. When those lots are created, not then become residential?
Yes, it's residential intention here, right? So the OP is that underlying document that says what the future land use is going to be. Most times in these situations, we leave whatever zone was on the property. So A2 in lots of situations stays on the property. But yes, this will be, okay, so we'll see an application for rezoning, okay? We'll see an application for draft plan of subdivision here for development to proceed here.
So,
Yep.
sorry, a follow-up then is for that lot, 9. Why is that different?
It's all hazard. It can't be developed.
You just said though, that one corner,
Just this one little corner here. But it's kind of separate from these lands. It's all, I mean, the hazard boundary, you can see where the hazard boundary is here. So this land can't be developed. It's in the hazard as established by the Conservation Authority.
to create a building lot there though. Is what we're here for right now, I believe.
Well, we're creating a lot with the potential for a building site. Okay, so, but we can create lots because it's all primarily hazard. It could stay that way and not ever have a dwelling on it.
Ready?
So there's a building footprint on here. Do you know what the square footage of that, of that building footprint might be? Because if you create a lot here, are they gonna have to come back to us for a minor variance to build a house? There isn't any sense in creating a new lot that they have to come back and ask for a minor variance.
The Conservation Authority, if you look at their comments, were quite satisfied that there was an adequate building envelope on the property.
Right.
Now,
But will that size suit the person because they might want something bigger? You know what I mean?
I understand, but I
I know.
we don't really have any control over that. The committee would have to deal with that as it came forward.
But do you know what size that?
I don't know off the top of my head.
If it's on the other map or not.
It doesn't say how many, what the square footage is, because if this is maybe,
Yeah.
if this is only 800 square feet, it looks good on paper.
But I guess that would be up to the person that would purchase the lot.
We don't have a minimum.
Well, the minute, yeah.
This is less than.
I think you can see the footprint of a house there. So this line is the 15-meter setback for the hazard. Okay,
Right.
so that's as close to this as that house can come.
I got all that. I want to know what the size of it is.
I don't.
That's fine. That's all I wanted to know. When you don't have that, that's good.
Okay, so I was still on correspondence, I believe, Patty. Yeah, so I believe that the last letter that we received today, I believe that you did speak about that. So now I will refer to our committee for their questions, even though some have already started. And I'll start on my far right this time, and I'll start with Councillor Vaizey. Go ahead, Mike.
We do have a couple,
My apologies. Sorry, we have somebody that would like to speak. Go ahead, sir.
Did they, Lisa, did they hit the diagram?
Yeah, they did.
Yes. I have to clear my throat. It takes a while. Give me a sec. First of all, I have no problem with what Brad wants to try to do. It's only a matter of detail of what you're trying to do. The issue that I've got is anything associated with that property right now is a drainage issue. It's not a house building issue. Because we've had, and maybe you could put the main diagram up again. You show my property there. Oh, maybe that's get it. It'll catch the last part of it. Can I walk up to that and point?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Aaron. Between that road up by those lots up to the creek is 130 to 140 feet. Appreciate that distance. It falls down in 3 stages. It comes down sloping a bit, and the tiling or sewer that was put in for those houses has a real problem. Because here it's a ditch. And it drops down about 50, 60 feet in that first stage. Drops down another 50 feet down here. Maybe 60 or 60 feet. I've never measured it. But then it comes right into here. At the level of the creek bank. And it goes into the creek. That's flooded 3 times since that system has been put in. The first system blew the manhole out completely. So the ditch was flooded, the water came over top. If you add 40, 50 houses, you're gonna have to put in a hellish good drainage. And it somehow entered that creek without causing the problems that I've got now. Because if you've got my diagrams, you can see the place that flooded right up at the my level on the embankment, which is about in the summertime again, the regular season, which we may never have again, by the way. The point is that the water level goes down in the creek to the point where it's always got water in it. And it flows, but it's like where the fish are, it's about 4 feet deep. But then going back, that's another 4 or 5 feet. And then it goes horizontally to this area. And that's the one that got overfilled the first flood. That's when you had 5 or 6 inches in last year. Okay, so all I'm saying is that I've had flooding in here every spring. Right now, I've got right there, I've got 80 to 90 trees lying in the creek. Okay, we had the ash borer kill every ash tree upstream of the Creek. I hit them down. What happened is I had to do some silences in here. And that means like I lost 30 feet of soil. Yeah, because it took a maple tree out. The first subsidence was a maple tree across. It's 2.5 feet in diameter, it's a big tree. It's still alive because its roots are only half of the ground. But it still stopped all of the branches and trees during that storm. It's bastard anyway. Anyhow, the point is that when that tree fell across this way, all of the ash trees that are along the embankments of Hickory Creek, which goes back 25, 30 kilometers. And that's where it stopped. They're still there, and I'm dealing with Elizabeth Cummings, trying to deal with that problem. But I can see it being exacerbated by any development here. So my issue is the drainage issue. Brad can build what he wants on there, I don't give a damn. But the reality is that it has to be
Great. Well, thank you very
it
much.
has to be treated.
I'm gonna refer to our CAO, Adam, because he probably knows more about the drainage than I do, for sure. So go ahead.
And I'm gonna come here to hear you, cause I can't hear, poor girl.
That's no problem. So when Mr. Jazanting or subsequent landowners choose to develop what we're referring to tonight as the table lands, they will need a stormwater management pond. that area is large enough that you can't simply direct it straight to the watercourse. It has to be controlled for quality and quantity. So to do that, they'll have to put in a stormwater management pond and prove to us through design calculations that the amount of runoff coming from those tablelands down into the natural watercourse is the same through the storm pond as it would be if the lands weren't developed. So they will have to put stormwater management infrastructure in there to reduce the risk of flooding on your lands.
Right now, I can anticipate that I'll flood in my property at least 1 or 2 times every year. Because of the amount of water that can come down that creek. When it rains, when you get even a 2 or 3 inch rain. So I think that we've got a drainage issue that is bigger than you think. Especially with climate change, because you're getting storms now that are tremendously different than what we've seen in the past.
There might be an opportunity to talk to the drainage. There's a drainage.
I believe you're already in contact with
That's
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
So-
Elizabeth's handling a connection, and
yeah.
So,
I'm looking for somebody to do all of this.
so I think our engineering staff will be more than happy to work with you as an adjacent landowner. Any water coming off that property that has to go to that water course will have to be done through the Drainage Act because they are crossing your private land. So you'll have ample opportunity to provide comments on the system at that time. Elizabeth's already aware of your concerns, so she'll definitely work with you to make sure that those concerns are addressed.
Right now, I just like to get those 80 trees. Or like, I just don't know, for God's sake. All trees and that bloody waterway.
And Elizabeth would be the only one out of us that could help you with that. So she knows more ways to do that and has more access to opportunities.
So you guys really don't have jurisdiction over that.
Absolutely not. Unfortunately, if it's a natural water course, technically the only person who has the right to access the land would be the property owner, yourself. So, and if you don't have the means to remove it, there's options, but Liz will have those options.
All these guys upstairs, further up for my property, and have sent me these presents. And
So, and there is precedence for turning natural water courses into municipal drains, especially when they drain substantial areas, including developed and undeveloped areas. So that, I'm sure that's an option that Elizabeth would have went through with you on. But for us as a group or even council as a whole, we've had the discussion before where if it's a natural water course, we don't have the power to intervene. The Conservation Authority regulates that, and even they don't necessarily intervene unless you are purposely blocking something or removing a natural feature, so.
what Brad's asking for right now for this reconsideration. Is that gonna have any impact? You're adding additional drainage there. If he builds 2 houses on it.
Those houses we'd have to look at the drainage. They're supposed to maintain their water on their land, so the one option would be to add them to the Pearson drain. If they did that, the engineers would have to recalculate the assessment of the Pearson drain and would have to look at the quantity control of the drain to make sure that adding those 2 houses does not adversely affect the downstream water course, which is on your property.
If you have another 6-inch rain, I can assume that I will end up paying a bit of a water damage.
And like I said, Elizabeth will try to help you as best as she can, and I'll follow up with Elizabeth tomorrow when I get.
Yeah, I'll work with you, Elizabeth.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for your time and patience
You're
No
welcome.
problem.
and getting it off my chest.
Councillor Vaizey, any questions?
No, most of them have been answered. I just want to hear that the 2 lots after if we allow this to go on, they become separate lots, are taken out of the main 25.
2 units, yes, 2 dwelling
Even
units.
though we're creating 2 new lots, it's still part of that.
It's still part of that designation that restricts numbers.
We're not going from 27 to 29. We're staying at 27.
Staying at 25.
25, sorry, not going from
Correct.
25 to 27. Yeah. Anything else, Mike?
No, everything else was explained in the report, so.
Jennifer?
I don't necessarily have an issue with the proposed two lots. I'm just wondering with the conditions. These are standard conditions that we have for severances for single-family residential lots. And I see it as two options for you, Brad. For the water and sanitary sewer connections, you either provide it or you do an agreement. But I don't like the fact of either or being put in the condition. I think we need to solidify what we want for conditions. And I guess a follow-up to that, the agreement, severance agreement goes to council for approval.
All agreements have to be approved by bylaw, therefore have to be approved by.
Okay, so, and then another follow-up question, Patty. You talked about a rezoning that would be required. I don't see it as a condition, though.
I did not make it a condition. The committee can if they wish.
I think it should be. Because basically what we're doing is we're seeing if the committee will allow for the severance in order to continue with the rezoning for the residential lot. So I think it should be part of the condition. That's just my thoughts. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
Nettie?
Yes, I already have a couple of questions answered, since I've been out of turn.
Butt in, yeah.
I didn't butt in. I thought I'd address them as the subject came up, okay? So anyway, yeah, when we grant a severance, then the conditions are that they pay the water and sewer fees and all that. When there's very few that have gone through it kind of any development. So then it's done and it's over with, and that lot is clean and free to go. So I would, if this is, if these lots are granted, then I definitely would like to see those conditions stipulate, not in any kind of development agreement, and not just, if I could specify that those fees be paid. And generally, we have the services be put in also. Not just the fees paid, and the services be put in. So, and the rezoning, if that's required. I didn't realize when I first looked at this that you would need a rezoning for that lot, but if you do, well, then it should be a condition of severance, not an agreement afterwards, so that somebody has to look things up 10 years from now or 5 years from now. That's it for now.
So traditionally, our recommendations, or conditions, so once again, on both, it says that the owner satisfied the Plympton-Wyoming Public Works Department that water and sanitary service connections be provided to the lot in compliance with the streets bylaw. And the other is, yeah, they're both the same. And yeah, I mean, that's usually water and sanitary is what we've asked before, so
To be paid and installed.
Okay.
Not according to streets bylaw.
okay.
Slightly different than what I've seen in the past. That's been slightly updated, so.
Okay. Sorry, anything else, Nettie?
I think that's it. If I might like to read that again, if I could.
Well, I think we've got possibly a few to take a look at both. Les, any questions?
Yeah, just basically like the 25 that you had asked about, Mike, that was one of my questions. That's been answered. What I was asking for earlier in regards to the table property in regards to the lots and how they would be handled at the time. Kind of, that's what led me to believe the same as what Jennifer's talked about in regards to rezoning that because we're here to for variance to create a building lot, not anything else, but a building lot. And so in that case, then it would be rezoned. So that would be only thing that I would look at is because I think that would create a beautiful lot. You'd have to have quite a lawnmower to cut that grass down at the bottom, but
I believe Nettie for the committee, I think Nettie's adding probably the rezoning, if, sounds like the committee, agreement with that.
And that's just for lot 9.
That would be.
Just for the one lot,
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment?
certainly.
Just keep in mind, sorry if I'm
Yep.
approaching, but when this develops at this piece, so if we did it in reverse, and one thing to keep in mind, we've been working on this for 20 months. It's been a very complicated deal with planning staff, and they were really concerned that we were gonna plant grapes on the slope. We are gonna clear the slope and plant a grape field. Where that happens in Plympton-Wyoming is beyond me. I'm not joking. Did a site visit. Adam, you were there with the previous planner. That was his concern. Anyway, so we've been at this for 20 months. We're finally now to an application. But if this develops, this would be by default a separate property without services installed and without zoning. All we're doing is doing the steps differently. There's no need to rezone it today, and there's no need to install services today. It does, it's just, it's, you're gonna end up at the same thing. And that way, if we get through the flexibility, and you know, Walter's a great example. This is his piece of land here. Maybe he wants to buy it and add it to his, and then we never need this servicing and we never need this zone. So to me, it seems premature to require the service and require the zone on this spot.
Gonna give us a loan?
Yeah, Les, go ahead.
if that's the case, then why not just defer that?
The way he wants it done.
What you mean defer, sorry?
Basically defer that lot 9 until the rest of that is developed now.
No, and that certainly is an option, and I may still do that if that's what the conditions are. I guess at the end of the day, the idea is to try to find a value or try to find somebody to buy it, but it's really hard to go talk to Walter as an example and say, hey,
Just kidding.
to buy this. And then the question is, well, what do you have to sell? How can you sell it? You know, there was another inquiry as an example, somebody that was looking to buy lot 7 and lot 9. Well, all of a sudden now this would be able to be merged together. And again, don't need the zone and don't need the service. And there's just so many options to this unique property that it just.
Who wants to speak?
Go ahead.
That's good. Are you aware that our property is a conservation area? So that it's a ditch or whatever you call that flat property that's at about 40 feet, 35, 40 feet above the water. Is gonna be not usable except for somebody who really wants to put some soybeans in there and lives with just doing it for that property. It'll never sell.
So Brad, what I'm hearing from my committee is that, I mean, if we're gonna go through with this, I think that that's gonna be the conditions. So if you would want number 9 being deferred, then tell me now before we go and pass this, because, or repeat it. So what would you like to do as far as the applicant?
Well, at the end of the day, if you approve it, then we can still figure out our options from there. I guess.
But knowing that the approval will have these other conditions on that you've heard tonight.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what that will lead to, I guess.
I'll just carry on.
I don't know, like I did, you know, again, this is all. This all came up, it's been going on 20 months. We've been worried about the slope and the grapes. This all came up last week. So there's not been a lot of time to get my head around these requirements and what the costs are. Even just getting a cost estimate to understand what my cost to put those 2 services in.
You want to defer that?
No, I think just proceed. Figure out the next steps.
I'm just waiting.
I'll give you that one.
Okay. I'm gonna do each individually.
Don't judge.
And I think there should be one more.
Lower areas. On the chickens.
Minor bit.
Acknowledge it.
It's still in my file. No, that's my carried. Oh, this one. That's where there's all.
I'll be back.
All right, I'm gonna begin. I'll read each application separately. There's a lot to read, so bear with me. I have a motion by Les Goldhawk, seconded by Jennifer Turk, that report SR dash 24-070 by Patty Richardson, senior planner, to be received. And that consent application B-0524 requesting permission to sever a 0.162 hectare, 0.4 acres, single family residential lot, proposed lot 8. On the balance of the lands known as 5706 Lakeshore Road be approved, subject to the following conditions. That the owner satisfied the Plympton-Wyoming Public Works Department, that water and sanitary service connections be provided and fees paid to the lot, sorry. To be provided and fees paid, sorry. Is that correct, Nettie? Number 2, that the owner satisfy the Plympton-Wyoming Public Works Department with respect to the lot having individual access installed in compliance with the streets bylaw. Number 3, a cash in lieu of parkland dedication fee is paid prior to the stamping of the deeds. The fee is to be calculated as per the Planning Act. And the value of the lands is to be determined by an appraisal carried out by a town appointed appraiser. The applicant is responsible for all costs associated with the appraisal. Number 4, that the owner satisfy the Plympton-Wyoming Public Works Department with respect to any connections, drainage works with respect to the registration of the municipal building on title of newly created lot. Number 5, drainage assessment on the severed lot be reapportioned according to the agreement signed by the respective property owners and provided by the town. If the parties cannot mutually agree, the apportionment, or if the town does not approve, the applicant shall pay the engineering fees incurred by the engineer selected by the town. The fees will be paid prior to the stamping of the deeds. Number 6, a copy of the final RD plan or survey be submitted to the town of Plympton-Wyoming in digital format and properly geo-referenced to the NAD 83 UTM zone 17 coordinate system. Number 7, a copy of the deed and survey must be submitted to the secretary treasurer in a form suitable for registration. Number 8, additional severance fees as required by the town have been paid before the documents will be endorsed. Number 9, the conditions must be met and the survey and deed be presented within 2 years from the date of the decision, or the consent will lapse. I will call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. For all of them, Brad, you know, there's a 20-day appeal period, so. Okay, I'm gonna move on. I got a motion by Nettie McEwen, seconded by Mike Vasey, that consent application B-0624 requesting a permission to sever 8.242 hectares, 20.37 acres lot, proposed lot 9, from the balance of the lands known as 5706 Lakeshore, and to retain a blanket servicing easement over the severed lot in favor of the retained lot be approved, subject to the following conditions. That the owner satisfy the Plympton-Wyoming Public Works Department, that water and sanitary service connections be provided and all fees paid. Number 2, that the owner satisfy the Plympton-Wyoming Public Works Department with respect to the lot having individual access installed in compliance with the streets bylaw. Number 3, a cash in lieu of parkland dedication fee is paid prior to the stamping of the deeds. The fee is to be calculated as per the Planning Act, and the value of the lands is to be determined by an appraisal carried out by the town appointed appraiser. The applicant is responsible for all costs associated with the appraisal. Number 4, that the owner satisfy the Plympton-Wyoming Public Works Department with respect to any connections to drainage works and with respect to the registration of the municipal drain on title of newly created lot. Number 5, drainage assessment on the severed lot be reapportioned according to the agreement signed by the respective property owners and provided by the town if the parties cannot mutually agree to the apportionment, or if the town does not approve, the applicant shall pay the engineering fees incurred by the engineer selected by the town. The fees will be paid prior to the stamping of the deeds. Number 6, a copy of the final RD plan or survey be submitted to the town of Plympton-Wyoming in digital format and properly geo-referenced to the NAD 83 UTM Zone 17 coordinate system. Number 7, a copy of the deed and survey must be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer in form suitable for registration. Number 8, additional severance fees as required by the town have been paid before the documents will be endorsed. Number 9, the conditions be met. The survey and deed be presented within 2 years from the date of the decision. The consent will lapse. And number 10, that a rezoning be completed prior to the completion of creation of the lot. We'll call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. And I will move on to our minor variance application. I have a motion by Jennifer Turk, seconded by Mike Basie. That minor variance application A-0424 requesting a minor variance from the provision of Town of Plympton-Wyoming zoning bylaw 97 of 2003 to permit the retained lot known as 5706 Lakeshore Road to have a lot area of 24.2 hectares, 60 acres be approved, as the variance requested is minor in nature in keeping with the purpose and intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and appropriate for orderly development of the lands. I will call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Once again, Brad, 20-day appeal period for all of our agreements. So once again, you could have a discussion with Lisa or Patty.
Can I just ask, I think you captured it, the blanket easement was included on, I'm making sure, there was not a lot of conversation about that tonight, so it's just making sure that was covered. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we will move on with our meeting. Let me get my agenda here.
Sign your name on the, sign in on the podium.
Is there any business arising?
Everybody.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Any business arising from the previous meetings?
No business arising.
Old business, I guess that would be. And new business, I believe you do have some new business for us.
So I wanted to note that the OCA conference is coming up in Windsor in June. Nettie has asked to be registered, so I wanted to know if anyone else on the committee would like to attend that conference. If you would, let me know as soon as possible and I will get you registered. At the hours in touch. I have printed off a couple of the guides that they sent out with the registration information, so you can review them if you're interested.
Lisa, when would you need to hear from the rest of the committee as to whether they would like to attend?
I believe it's the end of April that the registration is open till there's quite a time frame. Rooms do sometimes book up in the hotel because there is a hotel where there's a group discount. That's close to the conference site. But, so sooner rather than later would.
Okay, so committee you've heard, and anyone that is interested, just get in contact with Lisa.
No.
Any other new business?
I wanted to note that we have at least 4 applications being heard in April. It is possible that it might be 5 or 6, but there will be a minimum of 4.
Okay, thank you. Any new business from our planners?
Senior.
Senior planners, or planner, the planning committee, or.
Talking about that age thing again, eh?
That's correct.
Whatever he says, if I jump.
Counselor Vacy, any
I
new?
have
business?
nothing, thank you.
Jennifer?
Well, I do. I have one little thing. So I understand that the Plympton-Wyoming zoning bylaw is up for update or amendment for 2024. Right, Adam? So the one item I wanted to bring forward was kind of discussed at the last meeting for the EPL zone, which is the Environmental Protection Lakeshore Zone. So I wanted to know what the committee thought about submitting comments, because I'm assuming there's going to be a point during the zoning bylaw amendment process that there'll be a time where public comments will be accepted. So I'm wondering if that's the time when we could submit comments together as a committee regarding the EPL zone. So I was a little baffled with some of the comments during last week's meeting. When it was brought forth that no one knew how or where the zone came from. So after that meeting, I did some little investigating, and I talked to a senior planner at the county, who is still a senior planner at the county, who I thought would have historical information on this particular zone, only to find out that this senior planner and another senior planner had actually put it into effect. And it was created back in 2003, and council had approved it. And then there was follow-up amendments to the EPL zone in 2004. So the EPL zone was created to fill in the gaps that the shoreline management plan from November of 1996 that the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority document that was updated in 2005 couldn't address. And it was to act as an extra layer of protection for the municipality to quantify larger proposed construction in the EPL zone. So to be clear, the EPL zone is not to discourage building, but it's to rather regulate what could be built. And I found out later there was actually an OMB over this EPL zone when it came into effect. So the EPL zone is in place for properties with a very high erosion rate. So that's Sunset Acres in particular, Blue Point and Hillsborough. And this zone was applied to regulate increased sizes to new building additions. Maybe St. Clair Region Conservation Authority doesn't know where the EPL zone came from, but it's there for very good reason. In the EPL zone, it's a 3-to-1 slope plus 15 meter for 100-year erosion. And that EPL zone acts as an extra layer of protection for the municipality, something to this day that should probably stay based on the size of accessory buildings and houses that we're seeing coming across this desk that we're constantly getting asked for minor variances for. St. Clair Region Conservation won't have an opinion or a comment for properties within the zone because it's not their zone to regulate, it's Plympton-Wyoming's. So with the Plympton-Wyoming zoning bylaw coming up for renewal or update this year, my thought was asking the committee about putting our heads together and submitting thoughts to either to council or to the planner that's on the file at the time to consider that variances in the EPL zone go through a zoning bylaw amendment rather than a minor variance. And my reasoning for this is through the zoning bylaw amendment process, an environmental impact assessment could be requested at the expense of the applicant that will quantify the need for the EPL zone, or if what the applicant is proposing could be constructed and the zone be simply amended to the appropriate use of the lands. With an EIA, it will identify and predict, evaluate, and mitigate any biophysical, social, or other relevant effects of development proposals prior to major decisions being taken and commitments being made. I don't think the EPL variances are minor in nature due to the intention of the implementation of the zone back in 2003. And since we questioned last week if the zone was even needed, this would be one way to know if the EPL is required going forward when we get proposals for large development.
Okay, thanks. And go ahead, Adam.
So we will be sitting down Tuesday to review and select as a group, the county planners and the affected municipalities, the third-party firm which will be carrying out is the comprehensive ZBA. I don't think the committee was given the opportunity to comment on the OPA 3 years ago. Given that you're our front line when it comes to minor planning issues, or in some situations, major planning issues, I think it would be a good idea to gather comments. I don't know if we'll necessarily do that through a formal process, but maybe what we can do is try to have the planner who carries out the ZBA go through with the committee in one session, which will allow the committee to provide maybe written comments that can be considered when again, I think it's probably a good idea. This committee deals with a lot more the nitty gritty of that bylaw than necessarily council does. Council usually deals with it on a larger scale. So I think it's a great idea to get comments from this committee.
Can we make that happen at our next meeting? What's the timeline for that? Adam?
We have, I would suspect that if we're reviewing the proposals next week, that you probably will not see the consultant start until May. So I would guess that the public consultation, staff consultation, and hopefully the adjustment consultation would occur sometime in the summer, and that the new plan would be in place early next year. It's not a short process, so I would suspect though that we would be doing consultation in mid-year this year.
Can we put it on our agenda as business arising, Lisa, and we can continue to talk about it each committee of adjustments meeting, and if we would like to, I'd like to do it in cameras or on camera as well, so we can put our thoughts together and people can think about it prior to, and we can have a meeting that maybe in the next few months that we maybe don't have as many applications and have some time to have a discussion. Would that be fine?
Patty, correct me if I'm wrong, on a comprehensive zoning bylaw amendment, typically the consultant will go through it first, recommend areas that need to be updated to meet current legislation or current trends, if you will. Then they take those suggestions to the municipality, and the municipality then adds additional comments. So I think maybe the committee can start taking notes of the items they've seen that they have challenges with. And then once we get into that public consultation, you have all those notes ready to go. You can present those notes to a consultant, and those notes will then go to council as you will be a commenting group essentially.
Okay. Sounds good.
True.
Nettie?
No.
Oh, sorry, was that it, Jennifer?
That is all.
Anything?
That was enough.
That was your 2 pages.
Les?
Just a question for Jennifer. Have you got that written up?
I do, yes.
Would it be possible to share with the rest of the community for us to do homework before
Yes.
that?
I can email everybody.
done?
Yep.
Yeah, and
Staff as well for inclusion in the.
Yeah, I'll email it to the planners and to everybody here and to Adam and to you and.
I think the big line on there was the EPL zone is that it's like a one-liner. It's not a minor variance.
No, and I mean, last week's application, when you look at the EPL zone, that particular property, the house is already in the EPL zone, so if it's gonna erode away, the house is going first. And that little bit of that proposed accessory building is really this big on the big scheme of things, cause the town's gonna have bigger issues if the house falls in. But at the same time, it got me thinking, maybe that's not something that should be done here, cause we did talk about, well, what's the EPL zone for? Why do we need it? Do we still need it? And one of the ways that we can figure out if it's still required is through a EIA, so.
great. Yeah, thanks, Jennifer.
I want to commend
Yeah, absolutely.
for
Welcome.
For our homework.
Yeah.
She's done. Thank you. Yeah. Adam, anything? So the only new business for me is I want to thank our staff and our committee for the 3 meetings that we've had in March. Thank you, Lisa, for all the work you've done. A lot of work that needs to be done for the 3 meetings that we've had. So great work, and thanks to our planning department as well. Appreciate all the work you guys have done for this past month of March. So, and our committee, of course, for coming 3 times as well and going out and doing all your site visits and doing your homework prior to coming to our meeting. So, thank you. At this time, I have a motion by Danny McEwen, seconded by Les Goldhawk, that the Committee of Adjustments meeting be adjourned and the next meeting be scheduled for April the 9th, 2024 at 5:15. All those in favor?